Roles of a denizen. A content creator is a user that creates posts and is rewarded based on the quality of their content. A content evaluator is a user that helps assess the quality of content and enforces community standards. The evaluator is effectively taking part in a marketplace to curate content and is rewarded for early evaluation. A content consumer is a user that wishes to find and consume the most valuable content in a given subject area or within a community. A lair owner is a person holding tokenized ownership of all or part of a community lair. Owners are rewarded with a portion of all mining activity happening within their lair. Owners are incentivized to build the best community of content creators and evaluators.
What's up, denizens? Welcome to the first, hey, what's up, man? Good to see you there. Welcome to the first episode of the new format of the soon-to-be weekly Den governance calls. So we're going to go over all the stuff that's been going on, which has been a lot. And we posted the agenda up ahead of time so people could get an idea of what we're going through today. And we've invited people to come on and talk to us, just like we were doing on Twitter Spaces. It just seems like this will be a better format for us. We can cover more bases and get to more places that people will participate. So I've got the agenda post pulled up, and I'm just going to actually, Joe, do you have anything that you wanted to open up with or anything, or do you want to jump right into it? This is our first time doing the new format, so we're kind of setting the stage here.
Yeah, we'll work through and figure out the format as we go. So if anybody has ideas or anything, but we just wanted to make it so it was more open and available, and also so that we could have it. When we were on Twitter, we couldn't demonstrate anything because it was all audio. So this will help a lot. So anyway, yeah.
And looks like John's already on with us today. John Peacock's an old friend of mine that has recently gotten involved with Den Social. He's one of those people that after you talk to him for a while and they challenge it, as you should, they finally, it clicks, and it's exciting to see people get it. And so thanks for all the help that you've been doing as well.
Yep.
So on the agenda for today, we've got a couple of new features that are coming out that we've talked about before, right? But I don't think we've ever just said right now we're pretty close to a couple of things that we've been working on for a while. Matter tipping, I think, is going to come first, and then we're getting the Den governance mechanisms baked into the layers so people can really take over their communities and they can vote on their own guidelines and decorations and things like that. So does anybody want to talk about those two things specifically? I think that's kind of the biggest part of what we have to talk about today. So
yeah, the meat of it was that this was kind of our first test at without doing a vote yet, but to try to get feedback for priorities, right? So that we're not just saying, okay, we think this would be the best thing to do next. If the governance in the end will help not only decide which changes to make, but also what order, various things that normally as a project you'd have to decide anyway. And the two that were most appropriate to happen next based upon what we had already built and what we knew people wanted, like say the Gainesville layer and other things that we're trying to build things out, were tipping and layer governance. And the reason layer governance was there was because we know that we have to prepare for 2022, that the current rules, the way that we do governance right now, where it's lot that a user can go and create based upon staking liquidity, as an example, there's going to be a similar mechanism, but we're going to simplify everything for how people actually vote and propose and everything else. With that, we wanted to go ahead and plug in as the basis of that the layer, individual layer governance. I guess I should say that, inside of a layer, and it's been like this for a while, that the model was that instead of us, going back and forth in chat and saying, hey, I have a banner, you guys like it, then you have admins that post the banner, that instead anyone with a lot could propose, here's a cool banner I like, and if the votes agreed, then it just becomes a banner, and it's not like we have to do some separate process. It literally is just decentralized governance.
Right.
It just happens.
This will be one of those things that kind of helps the platform take care of itself too, right? Where
right,
obviously, like, humans are capable of doing things, so you give them the tools to do the things, and you won't have to do as much yourself, and it makes everybody happier, and it makes the community a lot better.
Right.
You talked about. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes really effective when you think about reputation, because sometimes people don't agree in the layer. So if the admins don't agree right now, it's kind of hard to get the reputation changed if you're just an owner. And with this, that'll be part of it. You would propose as like, I'm tired of people coming in with low reputations and making trash posts. I want to raise the reputation to clean up the content a little bit.
Exactly.
And you could propose it, people could vote on it, and then it just happens, right? And
and all that is really is like applying pressure where you think you need to drive the community into what it kind of decides it is wants to be, what's valuable for them. And then just like as a reminder, I'm going to switch tabs for a second over here. That's not a good layer. Let's go to the art layer, pull this down. So what we're talking about is anybody that's in this list of owners that holds a lot to a layer. This would be all the people voting on this stuff. Instead of just the top holders having admin, or however it's decided right now, depending on the type of layer it was when it was created. We're talking about just handing over. That's what lot is for. It's for governance, and that's what all of these names. Not only do you have passive income depending on how good your community is, but this is your decision makers for changing the banner, or talking about what this description should be, or what the community values maybe want to be presented as. I just wanted to bring that up as a reminder.
Yep. And inside the layers, it'll be one lot, one vote. Very, very simple. Right now, we assume that it literally will be a 50% vote to pass. There might be something that we learn that we need to figure out, a quorum and something other than a pure 50%. But for now,
I imagine we're going to learn a lot.
Yeah. And the thought is that it'll pop up, like say if you're on your mobile app and you have a lot for that layer, it'll pop up. Here's a vote. We're wanting to know X, a change in community guidelines, or change of the banner, or where to do lunch or something, and it'll just pop up and you vote. It'd be pretty nice, be pretty simple. And clean.
I hadn't even thought about that. I always think about event pages and stuff. It would be cool to have that eventually after the first iteration, to have that inside of a post itself. If it's an event post, say, and it's exactly what you're talking about, where to do lunch. That's a good idea.
Exactly. And I think I don't know how some of these things will show themselves. But like, say, if it's a configuration change, it'll probably be a special place in the interface. However, I do think that a proposal, and maybe not, maybe it becomes a post. Maybe if I propose a new change to the configuration, that it becomes a templated, very simple. Joe has proposed this change to this part of the system. Vote here. That might be the best way. I don't know yet. So they're
and and of course this is being implemented however we decide it needs to be. So all input is welcome.
Right.
And we've even talked about, like, with the apps being on the app stores now. That's where we can start. Okay, that supports push notifications, to where we could very well write a system where if you hold lot to a layer where there's a proposal post, then you get a push notification. Yep. So it'll help people stay involved with the community easier without having to hunt for stuff and keep tabs with it, and work more toward that autonomy of the platform and further decentralize it and stuff like that, which is what I'm really excited about.
Right.
Besides the next part.
Yep. And the next, I guess we go to tipping then, right?
So the other big thing is tipping, and that's you mentioned the Gainesville layer. That's where I live. That's the layer that I'm using as a prototype or a guinea pig or a model to see how we can bridge this into the real world. And this is something that you can use. It's really powerful if you can start bridging this into the real world as far as adoption goes, but also just the utility of it. Like Joe always talks about, the utility of it is there. And so we've got a group and a couple of venues in town that have been waiting on this one, and they're going to start accepting. We're going to facilitate them accepting matter for things at the bar and for the farmers market. Really start rolling this out to where people can use it in real life. So that's part of what this is about. And then the other is just like, if really realistically you're trying to send matter to someone, or you just want to decentralize your ownership a little bit with lot, you shouldn't have to go out to Ethereum, back into DEN, and pay all the associated fees. You should just be able to tip directly on the platform with the asset that you have, and that's exactly what we're doing. So that's coming pretty quick.
Right.
Pretty quick.
Right. And we're hoping to do matter, lore, or lot. So if you have matter or lore, you can just tip it, and it'll right now only be interfaced from content. So if somebody makes a post or a reply, you'd be able to tip them directly. We kind of wanted that so that with the roundtable and with potentially this show even, but then also Dragonchain stuff, that the people who participate can, on the very reply that they participated with, get the tip for lot or other, depending upon what we're rewarding. But the lot will be interesting, that you will be able to cross. We did think about it for a while, but it makes really good sense if, let's say, the NFT art, the art, and the NFT layers. We have 3 layers that are related to that subject, that if you have a whole bunch of NFT art and you see that somebody's making posts to the NFT layer that is probably what would be really good content in the NFT art layer, you can give them some ownership in the NFT art layer. And it's just a really good way to distribute some of that ownership for the community.
Right, and that's what I've been doing anyway. I've just been paying to do it, so I'm excited to not have to anymore. And this opens up, layer owners who want to do contests where you want to give out ownership to the layer, podcasts or live streams like World Blockchain Roundtable that use the mechanics of DEN to drive the content of the show itself. All of that gets way cheaper to do.
Right.
Potentially free, and that's something we got to talk about. I was mentioning earlier, you don't
right.
necessarily have to charge a fee. It's not a requirement of the infrastructure that we're operating on. So we could, and I don't know what we should do about that. So that's why we put down here, something for maybe a later gov vote once we have governance in. But just maybe something for community input. Should there be a fee charged? Should it go to DEN, the company? Should it be split like everything else? Should it be whatever you think about that? We're interested in.
Right.
Figuring it out with you.
Did you have something?
Yeah. I was wondering, is there a reason that there's not like a kind of a messaging or direct kind of tipping system? Because if you had a tip button or something like that where you could message somebody, you could toss it in like an attachment on email. Just, I want to add a tip. Here's my message, etc. You could do it anonymously or not. And I see functionalities being added all the time. I'm most excited about the voting, but being able to just directly send something to somebody would also be a really handy thing.
Yeah, we were talking about that with when we roll out the direct message. Like, we already have the infrastructure for direct message, group chat, layered chat in place, and we have a little bit of the interface on the mobile app, but we have a lot of work to do there. So we were talking about once that's in place, that we would, because then it's easier to address directly people and at them and stuff like that. So yeah, totally, it'd be nice if we had different ways to do that. So that's in the mix.
Yeah, and direct messaging and things like that have been on the drawing board for a while, and it actually been developed a little bit too. But I think we came at a certain point. We came to like, where's our bottleneck, and what can we do to what features will really let us streamline building out faster after we get those done.
Yeah.
And I think sort of the 4 corners of that were the app release for one, because everybody wants an app in the App Store. They don't, and me too. I get it. So that was something that was really big for adoption, for people to use it. The ability to take the layer into your own hands, really, with the governance. The ability to tip directly on the platform, so that, for example, there's a creator who, you're voting a lot, but maybe there's a big announcement in another layer, so they don't get paid as much as they would have or rewarded as much as they would have otherwise. This is a way for people to directly support a creator and say, let me make sure you get at least $5, no matter what the energy thing is.
Right.
And then the fourth pillar being the I forgot the three that I covered, but anyway, there's 4 pillars.
It's all good. Well, and that is a very good thing, because it used to be, before we had some of the consensus, we had to put in a model for consensus and quorum in order to avoid some of the gaming that was happening, that people were gaming the system, and that killed one of the main ways that people would run contests. It was like, hey, whoever gives me the best answer, I'm going to give you 1,000 energy, and that was direct. But after we put that in, me putting 1,000 energy on something is not as effective as it used to be, unless a whole bunch of other people also voted up. So with this, it's literally, I'm going to give somebody 100 matter, whoever, guesses
Right.
this or whatever. Right.
Yeah. Because you got to think about the variety of users too. Like, the super fan is a thing. So if a few of your followers really want to support you, we should let them do that.
Yeah.
And so that's what this is. That's part of what this is about.
Yeah.
As
And
well.
something else we didn't hit was that the tipper can choose to be anonymous. I don't know what it'll default to, but it'll default to anonymous or not, but that's something we can figure out. But and the reason is that when you get a tip, that it will show, and we think it'll be one of the either the matter, the lore, or the lot icon that shows on that content, and either be something that you hover over or click on, and people can see, Joe got 10 matter from this post from Jim, and that would be there, or from anonymous. That we know that we want to at least make it possible to be anonymous, because that's kind of cool. But at the same time, we want people to see that this reply was so good that somebody gave it something beyond, and particularly if it's ownership in the layer, which that's a lot of what I would like to do, because if I have a lot of lot for some particular layer, and someone comes in and makes a really brilliant post or reply, I'm going to want to give them some of that lot. It'll be amazing, right?
Right, because that's who you want. That's really who you really want to incentivize taking a role, a leading role in the community, even too. And I've got a lot of that. I know you've got a lot of that from the first few rounds of layer creation, where it was just, it was the tokens were just now available, on a DEX. People were like, didn't know how much they should put in the first place, and it just kind of, so there's millions of these NFTs, and it's going to be fun to give them out for free. Depending on who, maybe that could be a vote too, and absolutely that could be an arbitrary governance vote kind of thing. John, to your point though, I think that and Joe, correct me if I've got this wrong, but I think in the first iteration of matter tipping, your workaround's probably going to be to follow that user, and then whenever you want to tip them something, without the ability to just do it directly like you're talking about, like in a DM or something like that, you could go to their profile and just look at the recent posts that they put up, and go into their posts and evaluate it while you're there, check the tags, and send them a tip, basically that way. And then it'll be that'll be something that comes later, where of course if you're already able to tip somebody on content, you'll eventually be able to do it in a DM or stuff
direct on our profile. It could be the direct on our profile, and you can see a list of all the tips they've gotten, right?
Yep.
So
this is just going to be the first iteration of it, but it'll be added to later for sure. Yeah, what's up? You got something else?
On the issue of lot you were just bringing up, that's actually something you run into a lot with just when you own a business and you need to do some amount of funding. There's a lot of people who don't like the idea that they're being diluted in their shares, because oh, we're giving shares to this new thing, they're bringing in money. But you really do have to think about it like you were saying, that you bring in a new content creator, somebody who's going to build up the layer. And while you may be giving them some of that lot, at the same time, they're also contributing and making the layer bigger. So you might be giving away a piece of that, of that slice that you own, but at the same time, it's a bigger pie at the end of the day.
Yeah. Just like Bitcoin.
That's a really good point. I want one thing to bring up though is that all the layers that are passed with the community LCP, those are permanent. That's how many lot there are. That's it.
Yeah.
And then there are some business to business layers. If you are a business and you need the flexibility to inflate that, and you need to be able to mint them for whatever reason, that's a different business to business layer that's possible too. So both versions of that are possible, and it might be worth talking about, making sure that those are identified too, that there's an attribute kind of thing.
Right. Very true.
Very true. And then, so to piggyback on that though, exactly what you were saying, where people have to realize that, strategically giving out an asset that incentivizes people to help you is going to make what you have worth way more than if you would have held on to all of it. So part of the participation is to exchange these tokens for, where you see value in the community.
And make sure this is not investment advice. When we're talking about worth more, we're talking about value and in the value of the content produced and all the rest of that, right? So yeah,
that's a good point, and I should be clear. I'm talking about the value of an individual as an entertainer, as a community member, somebody who can manage a network. That's value. And that's the kind of value we talk about on DIN. So you can probably always assume that that's what I'm talking about if I'm bringing up value.
We hope, it depends upon how much time it takes, but we're hoping to also get QR code scanning built into the app so that real world applications can be used, where you could go and tip the band. You could go and, buy something possibly at the farmer's market in Gainesville, or, that type of stuff. It would all just be built in.
A friend of mine calls it boopable. Make it to where you can just put your phone up and go boop. There you go, and transfer. Boopable transfer.
And we might, I don't know if we want to talk about NFC also, or just QR code, but
I think just like with the Matter, where it's content, the contextual content based, and that's the first iteration. I think QR code is fine. That's super useful. We get so much use over that to where, putting in the work right now to do NFC. I mean, it's incrementally better, I guess. I don't know anybody that uses it.
Yeah, I don't even know if iPhones have. I know they have it. I don't know if you can. It used to be you couldn't access it. I know so.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, that's something. And the other piece is that we're hoping that this will lead, because the back end will be in place, and we will have to build an interface for it to do the generic lot distribution and lot matter trading, so that if I don't have the time to go and find creators that I want to pull in, or maybe they're not posting yet in my brand new layer, that I could just post the lot that I have, and they can trade me matter for that lot based upon performance and whatever else of the layer itself, and so that'll be later, but that's definitely part of what we're planning in this. So
and that's what these things are foundational, and I guess that's really what I was trying to say with whatever that analogy that I failed to make earlier, the trifecta that I did. This will lead to stuff like, and do you want to talk, Joe, a little bit about the vision of that marketplace and how it is priced, or do you want to save that until we get closer to it?
I mean, I could cover it because it's super interesting, and the more feedback we can get, the better.
Yeah,
right?
I think it is. I just didn't know if you wanted to lay it out yet or not.
And we don't know the semantics yet, so you can't count any of this as final. It's just okay, this is the way to think of it. That we want the lot to be a direct matter lot. We don't want to say, you can buy it with lore, you can buy it, with other lot, because we don't want to have to figure out, okay, what's the value of a lot. That if you said, and if we standardized on, let's say, a 30-day average amount of matter production per lot in a layer, right? So let's say this layer produces 300 lot per month average, and therefore it's about 10 a day. And therefore, if I buy, and let's say that there are only 100 of these lot, that means if I'm selling one, it produces about, what is it, 0.3, whatever it is, it's about 3 in a month, right? So if I sell that one lot, I could set it at 3 per month, or I could set it, I could set it at 3, or I could set it at 6, or I could set it at 9, or I could set it at some multiple. And meaning generally that you could estimate, okay, that means I have generally an ROI, if everything maintains the same in that layer, an ROI of, and it's probably totally the wrong term, but that I will get my money back for that trade in about 6 months. However, if I expect to come in and I'm incentivized because I'm going to come in, I'm going to produce a lot more content and make it pay me back faster. We're thinking about taking that angle instead of just saying an arbitrary, I'm going to set a value, that it would be a sliding scale to say, I want to make this extremely cheap, maybe just north of free, versus I want to make it very expensive and just, put it out there because I want to get them distributed in some certain way. And that's kind of what we're thinking about. The fact that all of this would be cooked in is pretty good. And I don't know, it's generally a really neat concept because it's a direct value comparison for a trade. It's not it's just literally a trade. I'm going to give you some this,
and it's
that.
far less speculative that way too, especially when you're
Right.
talking about, just giving it some reason to have that value on it or that number on it or that kind of thing. It's not speculation.
Yeah,
So
it's a measure of content, maybe content quality or content value, I guess.
Yeah,
Right.
I guess it would be a measure. I guess it would be a measure of, like, the layers sort of they compete against each other, right? They're like competing businesses almost in the same economy.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I sort of economically see the layer structure, as each one being its own like a sovereign sort of community and business, or pseudo sovereign, hybrid sovereign within an ecosystem and a community. So that's cool. All this new stuff is cool, right? What a time to be alive.
It's fun. Yeah. And from that post, go ahead.
And then
Yeah,
John,
if you don't mind, I think this. You said it's not really a return on investment, but in a way it is. I bring things back to business, and for me, it's if you think about it, it's time in the market versus time in the market. And if you wait to get into a layer, then during that time, it's still producing that whole time. And at the same time, you're also not contributing to the layer. So you're not going to be able to have the impact you want to have on it either. And maybe next week, the ratio of a 30-day average is going to be slightly different, but probably not as big as you losing out on that week of participation.
Right. And it would also mean that if people set, okay, I want to distribute this, so because we want, let's say we have 10 owners and we effectively want 50 owners to make it a vibrant community, that I can set it low enough to get more people in, number one. And the crazy thing is, if the value of content has increased, then the price of that one lot is going to go up or down every day. That it would be based upon the 30-day average. So one day or another, it might go up or down, right? So it's an interesting thing where I'm not setting a price, I'm setting a kind of a time function to it. So
snapshot, the snapshot price or something like that. Yeah.
And in my notes, I even have some stuff on. I even have some stuff that we want it more of as a distribution model. That it's not an exchange. It's more like a way to, how do I get more people in my community, right? And you theoretically could even put a production function on it. So I don't even want to have to pick and choose. I want to say, if somebody produces a certain amount of matter, I want to give them some lot, right? That won't be the first pass, but that's in the notes.
So that's kind of like, smart contract stuff. That's stuff that just, the engine in the background, and maybe that's something that gets decided, and what that threshold gets decided by a governance vote, which is based on, what's being built right now. Mm-hmm. So that power of iteration is very much playing out here.
Yep. So we can cover. We made a post about a week ago, week and a half ago, something where we brought this up. Help us decide priorities, and it looked like the community generally wanted to move first with tipping, and we think that we have a good plan to basically build out the first iteration of tipping and immediately start on the first iteration of the governance voting, and then we'll kind of interleave between those two until they're fully out. Anyway,
so those will be sort of around the same time frame released.
Yeah. Hopefully, hopefully it won't be too long too. So, all right.
So mobile apps are next. Speaking of that, right off the bat, the iOS version had a bug that wouldn't let you display layers and sign in and function and all that. That should be live now. So update your apps.
Fix.
See if it's fixed for you. It should be fixed for you. And if there's anyone that was having issues on the browser, try it in a private tab. Try it in like incognito mode or whatever it's called, or clear your cache and see if it's still an issue. Because most of that should be cleaned up at this point. So make sure you're not loading an old version. But yeah, the mobile app's slick. Mobile app's really good. Amir's, since he came on, a few months back at this point, and I've been kind of paying attention to what him and Todd have been building on the mobile app front, and it's been like TikTok, new features left and right, looking better, polishing up. It's been great. I've been really and people that I've been talking to, I do a lot of this locally when I can, and talk to people about it. And people that do use it locally that I talk to, man, they see it too. It's cool.
Awesome.
But yeah, so that's getting some updates coming down. Along with the bug fix, we're getting a dark theme. So that's something that's been asked for a while. That's going to be, I think it's just going to be on the app for a while first, right?
Restart, yeah.
Yeah. Because that's where everybody's going to be looking at the moment. So we're focusing on that. So dark theme on the app. And then, Joe, do you want to talk about mockups?
Yeah. We have the beginnings of, and what we want to at least consider doing is making these public so that part of the DIN governance people could even weigh in on some of the layouts and what we might do better for interfaces. But we will likely have that together in the next week or so, where the entire app at least is mocked up so that you can kind of look at different proposals as we move forward, because that's a big part of when you throw in something new. And specifically, like say the web, I think is pretty successful. And it was actually a total unknown if it would be confusing or not understood. But we put in a very unique voting widget to map how DIN votes really work, right? And so on web, you can see it holds and shows you how much you voted, how long ago you voted. There was a governance vote months back on creating a window, and it's a long story, but that window was to counter a very interesting style of gaming the system where people would trade off posts, let's say Dave would post something because he's my buddy and I'm going to go vote it up with all my energy today. And then the next day I post something and he does the same. And then I come back the third day and I vote up that original post that Dave put and with all my energy. And people kept doing that. And it wasn't really evaluating that content. It was just trading energy.
You know what I think is interesting is the first time that you noticed it before I did, but what I noticed was that in the area that it was particularly happening, the top trending posts were not the most recent. Like there would be transcripts, for example, or something, and they would be out of order in the if you sort by trending. So it's like, why are these old ones still getting voted up? Why are these old ones still being made relevant when they're not? So it kind of actually broke the experience a little bit too. So it was interesting.
And we threw that in. We threw that window in. So now, and the most confusing thing about that is people thought, oh, but what if I'm not up when that post comes out? I can't vote in that first hour. It's like it's not that. It is literally you could go back to content from last year that you've not voted on. Once you vote on it, you have 1 hour to adjust your vote. And that was it. That basically it cleared up anything where someone would accidentally downvote something and then you can't take that downvote back ever, right? It's already in the system. It also made it very clear that, okay, I'm going to upvote or downvote, but my second step in that process is I'm going to bet energy in a prediction market as to whether this content is considered good content by the rest of this community. And that's been radically effective, I think, in separating those two thoughts.
Yeah. John, I'm wondering. Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And the last bit is the fact that it really makes the Fibonacci meaningful, because the reason we have a Fibonacci voting, energy voting system is because it's a progressively, instead of being exponential, it is a more organic feel to a progressive increase in energy. So that if you get up and you're voting, let's say 987 on somebody, okay, it means something if you can't just vote 988, right? If the next step up is really like another 500, then it makes you, okay, that's as far as I'm going. It's not worth that extra leap, right? It's a really interesting thing. And now it's not cumulative. So if I vote 987, if I come back and I set it to 5, the real vote is 5, right? I adjusted it to 5 in that hour window. And, it used to be that you could vote 987 and then come back and I'm going to vote up 3 so I could get it up to a certain number I wanted. And it was kind of, it wasn't meaningful. So I really like it and it's really working. So
I wanted to ask John a question, but when I interrupted you a second ago, I had it and then I lost it. It's okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. But John, what do you think about the voting interface? Because I think what I really like about it is what was obviously what Joe was saying, but teaching through you, like the way that it's designed to use it. If it's intuitive enough to there must be a reason that this is separate. These are separate things. What do you think about like that approach to trying to use the interface itself, instead of an instruction manual, like gamifying the tutorial version of like games or something?
I think as long as people can see it and it's got a certain amount of versatility, I think it's going to be adapted to all kinds of different uses. Like my first looking for it was I bought into the RPG game layer, the new one. And of course, it's a brand new layer. It doesn't have a header or anything else on it. And I'm thinking, this is just a blank slate right now. And we should really get some stuff in here. And it occurred to me pretty much instantly, I'm an owner, but I'm not the only owner. And so you want to be able to say, well, if I'm the owner, how do I get any feedback from any other owners? And there's no built-in system for that. And even once you do have that, you could also say, I'm one of the owners on this, and I've never really liked a particular header or a particular way of doing something. How do I kind of start a new dialogue about getting something going here? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a vote with consequences, but being able to poll everyone else.
Yes.
Or even poll everyone who's simply using the platform. Being able to have these tools and not even necessarily having a consequence built into the result of the vote. Because maybe you just want to have you want to suggest having a rolling series of pictures so that every month we can change a picture on the layer. And we'll just have, based on votes, whatever's on the top, that'll be there for the next, but it'll be ineligible for the next month. So you can just set that up as an ongoing thing. But right now it's a completely blank slate. There's no tools available. Right. And so whatever tools you make, people will start using them. And if they're robust enough, I think you'll see all kinds of uses you never planned for.
Yep.
That's a good point too, is like allowing for uses you never planned for. That's the magic part. That's the thing where you build tools and you're like, I don't know, I built this tool to do this, but it could be used for that too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We do want smart contract based bots. Like we do want to be able to say you can deploy a smart contract to do anything your layer might want to do, something like that.
Well, that's a version of what like Slack does, right? Isn't that kind of a version of what like the Slack bot is, where you could have a easily programmed bot that does things for you?
Telegram does it. All of them do it, but they're all of those bots run on some instance somewhere, just as a web service. And what we want to do is make it a smart contract. So if something happens, the smart contract fires, and it does whatever it does. So. Okay, next up.
Well, let's move to the next then. So LCP. We've got an October LCP opening up on Tuesday next week. So we've had a lot of layers coming out, man. We even after like we trimmed it down to 2 per round, it still seemed like, wow, man, it's cool. There's a bunch of little layers popping up. So there's some metrics on screen. There's 87 layers right now on Din, which is cool. I think when I first found Din, there might have been a dozen layers or something, something like that.
Yep.
So that's been cool to see that grow, and largely due to those first, what we talked about with the first layers having the millions of lot and stuff. But still, like, these are all ERC20 compatible NFTs. And if you look at other people in the industry that are dropping NFTs and minting them, it's like the numbers end up getting interesting when you see what can be done at scale over here versus what's clogging up Ethereum right now. So I'm happy to see that, seeing this in action is great, because I can still take it over there if I want. I don't have to. It doesn't bog the company down, to mint them. It's
right.
It's cool. It's in action,
Right. Oh, and there will be, by the way, we don't know when yet. I mean, I've thought about it recently, whether we should bring it up, but NFT based avatars and banners, right? Where if you had an NFT that you buy out in the Ethereum world, that you could use it with the equivalent of a checkbox, to say this, the person owns this background, the person owns this avatar, stuff like that.
That's a good point, because it's a matter of, like, you already have, if you're using the Ethereum side, then you already have your wallet claimed. You've proven that that's your wallet.
Right.
So that's another thing, like with the other foundational things like tipping and governance and things like that, it becomes, okay, what else can you do with that? It's what you did with farming. Instead of making people pay gas fees to lose custody of their tokens and take on all this risk, we just said, well, you've already proven you own the wallet, and the wallet is on a public ledger. Why then do we need you to physically move them when we can just watch it? And then we'll let you know how much lore you get. And that's great. I like seeing that. When there's not a reason to do it, it's great to see how it's done differently.
Yep. And it is worth saying too that we will it does depend, but there will be other NFT integrations that we already know a couple of things we want to do, including potential that the NFT art layer might want to start selling NFTs directly on there without the fees, right? And we do want to make that possible. And we already have a partner. Dragonchain has a partner that is already building some of what's needed to plug all that in, and they're wanting to integrate it so that all of the NFTs on their platform would have a community forum directly attached, right? So pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about the access to IP that Din has uniquely with Dragonchain. To think about, I don't like to speculate too much, but it just seems like, man, the access to tools and the access to IP and the access to the patents and things like that is something that's super unique here, and I'm so excited about being a part of it.
Yeah.
So let's break out to just kind of the end of this meeting. If you guys want to have just any kind of questions or reminders about things that are coming up, and and let's wrap up. What do you think, John? You got anything else you wanted to chat about?
No, I was most interested in the voting.
Cool. Yeah,
me just have a simple vote with a simple majority. That gets you one kind of result, but the more flexible the voting is, the ability to add various groups or even potentially limit the number of people that are voting, just having those options is going to do a lot to what people can use the tool for.
I agree. Yeah, I'm glad you recognize that, because that's you and I think a lot alike. That's one of the reasons I think we hit it off, a few years back. So John and I did a Fallout 4 mod quite a while back, where we put a bunch of local bands, and we put a bunch of
That's cool.
artwork into the game where you could go out and you could create your own radio station. And John did the legwork of the radio station. It was cool. I'm happy to have him aboard. I'm hoping that we can link up on some more projects. Maybe with the gaming layer, or maybe with something like that. We have a lot of overlap interest there, so that's cool.
Yeah, and there will, on the voting, there will be a really interesting discussion about. I think we have a lot of the model, but there's some little details we want to get feedback on for the site-wide governance. It won't be the same as internal, inside of a single layer. That it'll be much like it is already, where there's a matter component. So the creators have a say. There's a component of the owners or the people who build communities, so they have a say, and then the Den team or entity itself. And that we really want the ability for either two of those to overrule the other, right? In one of these votes, that if the Den entity wants to take some bad move for what creators value in the system, that they could join up with the owners and overrule Den, making some radical change to the algorithm or something. And that's what we want, because then it'll be decentralized governance and it can be mapped out pretty cleanly. And we have some, because we don't want to lock tokens, like Dave said, we have some angles, some plans to help us, to put in a factor based upon time. So the longer you hold it in competition with other people, the more weight you have in voting, the more votes you have, however you want to count it. So you are incentivized to keep those things sitting there instead of locking them. Because if you lock them, there's security risks, there are costs associated, everything else, and it just and also it kind of pushes out.
Annoying.
Yeah, and it's like you think about it, only then the most technophile and interested people will participate, and we really want everybody to have some say on the entire system based upon their participation, reputation, and everything else. So anyway, it'd be pretty cool.
Do we have any were there any comments here? This was posted this morning, right? Yeah. Okay, so we have one about the iOS app. That should be fixed now, Clutch. Make sure you update your app and see if it's still doing it. It's not the same app anymore. Okay. It needs to be better and easy to use. Well, I think some of that comes with the functionality of being broken with a couple of the bugs, but let's give it another go with the new update and go from there.
And other than that, I mean, watch Super Happy Tuesday, watch World Blockchain Roundtable. Occasionally, Den stuff does pop up, definitely in those.
Yeah, and I'll say throw some questions in there that you're curious about. Everybody has questions, and you'll be rewarded for doing it. And if it's a decent question, you'll be rewarded enough to get ownership of the of what do we call it? Is it a podcast? Is it a?
I don't know what you call it. It's the World Blockchain
ownership
Roundtable.
of the show. Of the layer.
Community. It's a show. It's a community. I don't know. It's
which comes with
really
all the privileges that we talked about earlier, voting and things like that.
And it really is an interesting thing, because it was basically the first instance of what I think of as an experiment in community development, where we wanted to set up this this show that was it used to be an in-place meetup in Seattle. So it was a very large blockchain generic meetup group that I started in 2016, and it blew up. It just went really, because the timing was really good. So we had thousands and thousands of members. We would have really big meetings, but then COVID hit, and I got really busy and everything. So it kind of wasn't being maintained. And so we thought, okay, let's launch it again, but make it live. And we thought, you know what, this is basically a no-code approach to building a community, because people will have ownership in the community. They'll be able to help us decide, how to navigate over time to, get more people in the community to get better
That's exactly
content.
what I'm using in Gainesville. That's exactly my approach. It's like, wow, here's all, and this is why I keep calling it a tool set or tools, is like, I see that I got 100,000 NFTs that I can hand out to people at parties, at local shows, at the farmer's market, at people that I see actively being involved, the people that are promoters, people that are in bands, and that's how you jumpstart a community, is you let them own it. And you let them profit from their work that they put into it. So that's what this is about. That's what part of what we're about anyway. What I'm about.
And let's see here. The next thing is the Den Gov calls from now on are going to be an hour earlier to meet up a couple of schedules. So 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific, U.S. time.
And then eventually we'll go back to weekly, but we're still by every other week right now.
Yeah. And we're thinking once I think it's going to be very interesting when the layer governance is in, because, and I guess actually when site-wide governance is built to the new system as well, because I think we have so many issues that are moving around that we'll need to do it weekly, and this will be the place that people can come to to discuss live. Why this versus that, right? Yeah,
for sure. And then we can even highlight and bring up what's up for vote in different layers, and we can talk about that. And maybe you get some ideas for your community that somebody else is doing. There's so many reasons to do it weekly. They're just not quite there yet. So
it's going to be neat.
Back to that.
Yep. All right.
So that's all I've got. You got anything else?
I don't. I think that's it.
That's it there. Good. So not next week, but the following. Meet us right back here. We'll be at 3:00 Eastern, and that's noon Pacific time, I think, if I'm not wrong.
Right.
And then we'll have updates then. We'll have 2 weeks worth of work to update you on and talk to each other about. Spread the word, and see you then. Thank you.
Thanks.
Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best. Adaptable, all capital, label radical yet rational. Adaptable approach is palpable if this animal is fallible. But that conclusion is laughable, so with for all detachable from the mandible. You see it now?